You see, Broadway people assume that they're going to live forever and that there's never going to be a day where you're going to take your last breath. And then Broadway people have a tendency to think, well, you know, I know about Jesus and I just want to live on the Broadway and have my fun and do this and that and everything. And even though it saps the energy out of them and just gives them all kinds of grief and heartache and all these other things, but they have this in their back of their mind, one day I'm going to ask Jesus to forgive me, and it'll probably be just before I go down on a plane, or just before a car crash, or just before I have a heart attack. I start feeling my heart, and I'm going, Jesus, forgive me. Play that Russian roulette. So when I was a young man in church, there was a guy named David Womack who came to speak. Had an amazing testimony. He would have been on vacation in the Canary Islands, and Canary Islands, they're known for, there was a horrible plane crash on the Canary Islands. 2 planes were loaded to bear, full of fuel. They were going down opposing runways, crossing runways, and the air traffic controller made a horrible mistake and sent both planes down the runways at the same time. And those planes collided at the point of impact. David Womack, Christ follower, he was giving his testimony how he had gone through the actual flames and everything and not even singed a hair on his head. I was listening with rapt attention as a young man. I was like, wow, in this plane crash. And he was just one of a few survivors. And he told of the story. He said, I used to always think that I could ask Jesus, if I was far from God, that I could ask Jesus in the last minutes of my breath to forgive me, and I'd go to heaven. But he said, what I witnessed on that plane just struck me. When I saw the flames come erupt and start to boil down the center of this plane right towards me, he said, all I could do was cry out to Jesus, Jesus, save me. But he said, I saw so many vacationers who were leaving the Canary Islands from their vacation, who were seated in those seats just in front of me, stand to their feet, and in their last breath, they did what they always did. They profaned the name of Christ, cursed him as they were dying. I'll never forget that. You see, a friend of mine who was a pitcher for a baseball team, Cal State Fullerton, won the College World Series, had a coach that put it all into perspective. He said, in times of pressure, you will revert to form. You will do what you've always done when you're under great stress and great pressure. So don't kid yourself if you're a wide path person, Broadway liver. Don't kid yourself that somehow you're going to reach down and find something that you haven't done at all in your life. You're not going to do what David Womack said, because you see, he had met Christ that morning in his own devotions. It was easy for him to say, Jesus, save me, because that was in his heart. But for the people that stood in that plane and were consumed by flames, what was in their heart came out in that day, and their eternities were sealed. I know in this room here today there are 2 types of people. It's true in any gathering, in the church especially. There are wide path, Broadway people, and there are narrow path people. Some of you in this room here today may say, well, you know, I'm doing my own thing, and you may have even bought into some of the deceptions that the devil tells us, that there are many ways to God, and you've heard all the reasonings of coworkers or even maybe family members, and they've presented a compelling case, and it sounds all good with the Constitution of the United States in one hand and their finger in their face on the other, and they're saying, we're all okay, we're all okay. And Jesus just says, everybody can come to the kingdom of God, but you have to go through one door. I was talking to somebody recently, right along this road here, Highway 80, Interstate 80. It's Interstate 80. You can get on Interstate 80 and you're going to take it all. You can take it all the way to New York City. It goes all the way to New York City. You could get on Interstate 80 and say all day long, I'm going to Texas, but Interstate 80 doesn't go to Texas. You can drive it all the way to New York City, and all along you can say, I'm going to Texas. And you ain't going to get to Texas on Interstate 80. You're going to have to change freeways. And that's what I'm asking you to do today. I'm going to ask you to bow your heads with me for just a moment, and our worship team is going to come. With your heads bowed and your eyes closed, I want to ask you again, specifically, what path are you on? Are you on the broad way or on your narrow way? Two groups of people, as I said, Broadway people and narrow way people. I'm going to tell you again, there's only one way to get to heaven, and it's through Jesus.